The quick check nightmare. I've always been a quiet guy, nondescript enough to blend into the background. People probably wouldn't notice me in a crowd, but if you worked the late shift at a gas station, maybe you would. Not that it matters. That night it was just me, a laptop, and the kind of focus that borders on obsession. I was coding, eyes glued to the screen, the clock somewhere past midnight. Some people hit their peak in the morning. I hit mine when the world is asleep. Between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. there's a strange kind of clarity at that hour, a mental edge, the kind you only feel when the streets are empty and your brain is in overdrive. But clarity comes with consequences, and that night the consequence was hunger. It hit suddenly, like a pang that couldn't be ignored. I closed the laptop and decided to grab something to eat. The only place open nearby was a small convenience store on the edge of town. A quick check, nothing fancy, but enough to satisfy my late-night cravings. The drive there was uneventful. Empty streets, only the hum of my tires against asphalt and the faint glow of streetlights cutting through the dark. The kind of darkness that feels alive if you pay attention. I arrived at the store, pulled into the lot, and ordered a sandwich. While waiting, I wandered the aisles because sitting still wasn't an option for me. ADHD and caffeine combined make stillness impossible, like my body refuses to exist without motion. That's when I saw him. At first I thought my eyes were playing tricks. A man sitting crisscross on the floor in front of the refrigerators. Not slouched, not leaning casually, just sitting staring. Into the fridge maybe, or something beyond it, I don't know. The brown coat and jeans gave nothing away. His posture was twisted, unnatural, tense. He wasn't relaxed. He was straining, like holding himself in some invisible vice. I needed to see his face. I walked a few aisles down, planning a quick look. But the moment I turned the corner, he whipped his head toward me. His eyes wide, unnatural, vibrating in a way that made me feel my own skin crawl. His lip quivered, though the store was warm. The stare, God, the stare. I've never seen a human look at another human that way. Blank. Dead. Like he was already somewhere else and I was just there. We stared for what felt like eternity. My heart pounded so hard I thought he could hear it. I tore my eyes away and forced myself to act casual, browsing snacks like I wasn't completely terrified. But my food wasn't ready yet and I couldn't stop checking the corner of the store where he'd been. I expected him to appear suddenly from some shadowed aisle, and my stomach twisted just thinking about it. Finally, the sandwich was ready. I left the store. But the terror didn't end there. As I drove back toward the highway, movement caught my eye. A figure sprinting across the parking lot. Brown coat, the man from inside. He jumped into a pickup truck and peeled out, headlights glaring like twin suns in the night. I sped off, heart hammering. And then headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. Close. Too close. They weren't police, but they were following me. The instinct to survive kicked in. I floored the gas, my sedan struggling to keep pace with his truck. He matched my every move, flashing lights, honking, swerving to stay behind me. My mind screamed, drive, survive, don't stop. He rammed me once. I swerved, slammed on the brakes, and watched the truck spin off into the night. Hands shaking, pulse racing, I didn't dare look back. I made it home, safe but shaken. I called the police, gave them my statement. It sounded insane even to me. I didn't know why he'd gone after me, and I still don't. But this wasn't the only time my nights took a terrifying turn. A few years ago, I was working a logistics job delivering electronics and custom PC parts across the Southwest. My route was long, erratic, sometimes 12 hours straight through the night, through areas so remote most delivery companies refused them. One night, on a stretch of Route 82 through southern New Mexico, I saw a red hatchback pulled awkwardly onto the gravel shoulder. A woman standing next to it, phone in the air, clearly looking for a signal. Instinctively, I slowed down. I hesitated. Stories of people disappearing in the desert at night aren't just stories. But then I thought about my girlfriend, my sister. If they were stranded, I'd want help. I had a Glock 43 under the steering column just in case. She rushed over, claiming her car had died, needing a ride. Her voice was jittery, slurred, tipsy, or on something I couldn't tell. She deflected every question, begging me to just drive. But then I saw him. A man stepped from behind her car, shadowy, long object in his hands. Another figure stepped directly in front of the road. My survival instinct hit like a wall. I floored it. She scrambled, digging in her purse, likely for something dangerous, but I had my gun visible and yelled for her to freeze. She stopped, expression unreadable. 30 tense minutes later, I dropped her at a gas station. The evidence in the car, a burner phone battery, zip ties, confirmed my instincts. She wasn't innocent. Being armed may have saved my life. I never reported it. Too complicated, legally and personally. Then there was the time with the roadside bathroom in Kansas. I woke up at a small station along US Route 400, needing to stretch and use the restroom. The restroom was empty, or so I thought. A woman stepped from a stall, messy gray hair, sticky-looking foam flip-flops slapping softly, a thick coat in the middle of summer. She stared at me with this locked-on expectation. I went into a stall. She faked leaving twice, just to make me believe she was gone, but I could hear her breathing somewhere in the bathroom. I didn't dare move until the final, terrifying gasp of air announced she had left. When I returned to the store, she was outside, glaring, holding something. Knife. I didn't wait. Ran to the car, jumped in, left. My husband didn't question my sudden return to the road, but I haven't used a roadside restroom after dark since. And finally, the white van on I-80, freezing January night, barely anyone on the road. I pulled off at a deserted rest area. The van followed, lights flashing, silent. I couldn't tell if the driver was human or some shadow pretending to be. He tried to communicate, rolled down the window, checked the truck bed. Nothing in the bed. His intentions became obvious. I sped to a truck stop, parked under lights, and the van came slowly, menacing, observing me. Two men inside, hoodies, faces blank, silent. The trucker outside confronted them. They reversed and disappeared, but the unease lingered. I never drove long distance after dark without preparation again. Each of these events, the quick check man, the desert hitchhiker, the Kansas bathroom woman, the white van, was different, yet the same. Isolation. Uncertainty, and the gnawing awareness that someone, or something, was always watching, waiting for the wrong move. I don't know why my life has been punctuated by these nights of terror. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's fate, or maybe the universe has some cruel way of testing how far fear can push a person. All I know is the world doesn't feel safe after dark, not really. And every time I see an empty parking lot, a deserted highway, or someone staring from the corner of a room, my heart starts hammering in a way I can't control, because I've learned something essential. Fear isn't always irrational. Sometimes it's the only thing keeping you alive. The long road of fear. I can still feel the tension from that night at the quick check, the desert, the bathroom, the van. It never really leaves you. But some nights, you realize the world isn't just unsafe in the places you expect. Sometimes the danger comes from nowhere at all, or from people who seem normal until they are. It was summer of 2022. I was 25, hauling refurbished electronics and custom PC parts for a small logistics startup. The pay was okay, the hours long, the roads mostly empty. I didn't mind the driving. I'd grown up in a family obsessed with road trips, so hours alone in a car never felt isolating. They felt familiar. But that familiarity can lull you into a dangerous complacency. This particular night, I was driving from Phoenix to Lovington. The highway cut through remote stretches of southern New Mexico, areas so deserted that the only lights you saw were the stars above and the faint glow of distant gas stations. I had been behind the wheel for nearly 12 hours already, my playlist long exhausted, podcasts keeping my mind awake. I rounded a bend in the road and saw a red hatchback, awkwardly pulled onto the gravel shoulder. Hazards flashing. A woman stood next to it, phone held high. Instinctively, I slowed. My brain screamed, "Don't stop." But another part said, "What if it were someone you knew?" I waited for a second, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. The Glock under the dash reassured me, though it was a small comfort. She approached the car immediately, words slurred. "Can you just drive? My car won't start, please." Something about her voice sounded wrong, like she was overplaying vulnerability, testing me. But I unlocked the door. She slid in without really looking at me. That's when I saw him. A man stepped out from behind her car, shadowed by darkness. He carried something long, maybe a pipe, maybe a bat. Another figure emerged directly in front of the road. My body reacted before my mind did. I floored the gas. The woman reached for something in her bag and I yanked my Glock into view. Her hands froze mid-motion. Her expression was blank. I didn't need words. I knew I was staring at danger. I drove 30 tense minutes in silence, refusing to glance at the rearview mirror more than necessary. Finally, I found a gas station. I yanked her out of the car, showing the gun just enough to make her comply. On the ground, she struggled briefly, yelling words that didn't make sense. I discarded the zip ties and phone battery she had left behind. No police. No report. I wanted to disappear from that night as quickly as possible. That night stayed with me, as did every night after. I started noticing patterns in myself, flinching at shadows, double-checking locks, keeping the keys between my fingers when walking to my car. But it was just the beginning. Another memory, more recent, comes back clearly. It was late at night in mid-2022. I was coding again, headphones on, the soft glow of the laptop screen the only light in the room. Hunger hit, so I decided to drive to the same quick check. Empty roads, no one around, and that familiar sense of calm, until I saw him. The man from before, sitting in the same twisted posture. Brown coat, jeans, eyes wide, lip quivering. I froze, heart in my throat. I wanted to look away, pretend he wasn't there, but curiosity and fear collided. Our eyes met. He didn't blink. I didn't either. The seconds stretched into a taut eternity. I could feel my pulse in my temples. I managed to look away, move past the aisle as casually as possible, pick up my sandwich and leave. But the terror didn't end in the parking lot. The moment I got on the highway, headlights appeared behind me, too fast, too precise. Not police. He followed me, swerving, flashing lights, honking. My mind raced, calculating options. Escape or confrontation. Escape. I slammed my foot to the gas, pushing my sedan past 100 miles per hour. The truck stayed behind, relentless. Every nerve screamed. I swerved, braked, tried to lose him. One ram, one spin-out. One violent rush of adrenaline that left my hands shaking, my chest heaving. He disappeared into the night, but I knew I wasn't safe. Weeks passed. I tried to rationalize the events. Maybe it was a coincidence, a dangerous coincidence. But the memory of his dead stare never left. And then, just when I thought I could breathe again, another story emerged, smaller but no less terrifying. It was Kansas, on a cross-country trip with my husband. We were driving late, Route 400, 100 miles of nothing but farmland. I had been asleep in the passenger seat. Around 10 at night, I woke to find us pulling into a tiny gas station. I went inside to use the restroom, leaving my phone in the car. Mistake number one. Inside, I almost bumped into a woman leaving a stall. Gray, unkempt hair, sticky-looking foam flip-flops slapping softly, a thick coat wrapped around her. The air smelled faintly of mildew, the kind of smell that sticks in your nose. She stared at me, waiting, expecting something. I froze, unsure what she wanted. I retreated into the stall, locking the door. My breathing was loud in my ears. The air felt heavy. Moments later, I thought she left. Then I heard her breathing again, someone else. She had faked leaving, twice. My mind raced. Third time, I couldn't risk stepping out. Finally, after what felt like hours, the bathroom went silent. I emerged cautiously. She had left, or maybe she hadn't. I didn't wait to find out. Outside, I saw her again, holding something, crouched slightly like she was about to spring. I ran to the car, husband oblivious. We drove away, hearts pounding. That image, the waiting, silent stare, has stayed with me ever since. And then another memory, even more visceral. I was driving east on I-80 in January, freezing, snow starting to dust the windshield. A rest area appeared, blue sign glowing faintly. I pulled in. One other vehicle, a white van parked far off, engine off. I went inside, washed my face. I thought I was alone. Then the van's lights came on. My stomach dropped. I started the engine, pulled out, lights off again. Then headlights appeared behind me. The van, no windows, no markings, just a dirty, boxy cargo van. It matched my every move. I sped up. It stayed close. Gestures through the window, nothing in the bed of the truck, intentions clear. I reached a truck stop, parked under bright lights. Van followed, idling at the edge of the lot. Truckers inside watched. Two men, hoodies silent, staring straight ahead. A trucker confronted them. They reversed, vanished into the night. I stayed inside an hour, eyes glued to the lot, until I finally dared to leave. These incidents weren't random. They built on each other, each encounter teaching me something primal. The world is bigger, darker, and stranger than you think. And sometimes the line between life and death is measured in milliseconds of attention. I've learned habits. Windows up, doors locked, lights on in public spaces. Always scanning, always aware. Every noise, every shadow, every movement in the corner of my eye triggers that survival instinct. My hands twitch toward the Glock, even in safe areas, even when nothing is there. The fear has embedded itself, a constant companion. And yet, there's something worse than the fear. It's the memory of their stares. Dead eyes, blank expressions, faces that refuse to register as human. It's the uncanny awareness that someone somewhere has chosen to fixate on you. You are a subject, not a person. A target, not a stranger. That's the part that never leaves, the part that eats at the edges of sanity. I can't say why I keep reliving these nights, why the memory comes back in vivid clarity. Maybe it's because I'm trying to learn, trying to prepare. Maybe it's because the universe enjoys reminding you that safety is a myth, a fragile illusion that shatters the second you let your guard down. And as I write this, hours past midnight, the world silent except for the hum of my laptop. I can feel it, the old familiar knot of fear tightening in my chest. Eyes wide, lip quivering, dead stare. Somewhere out there, someone is watching. And I know deep down that one day I might not get away. Shadows that follow. I thought by now I had seen it all, experienced enough terror to last a lifetime. But that night, the universe reminded me that fear has layers, each one sharper and colder than the last. I can still remember it as if it were happening now. The hum of my car on a desolate highway, the occasional passing headlights, the chill of the air even through the cracked window. Summer had ended, but the memory of every encounter lingered, etched into my nervous system. It started innocently enough. I was heading out of Lovington after another long delivery, my cab filled with boxes, the seatbelt cutting into my shoulder. The road was quiet as it always was at that hour, no one else around for miles, just me, the dashboard lights, and the endless stretch of asphalt. I had just enough time before sunrise to get to my next stop, so I kept driving. My mind wandered to the previous nights, the quick check, the van, the woman in the bathroom. My pulse quickened without reason. I told myself it was just nerves, residual paranoia. But then I saw movement. At first it was subtle, a figure on the side of the road, barely visible in the dark. I blinked and it seemed to vanish. My heart skipped a beat. I rationalized. Maybe it was a trick of the headlights, a bush moving in the wind. But a few miles later it happened again. Another figure standing perfectly still just off the pavement, and the instant my lights swept past, it was gone. I tried to ignore it, keeping my eyes on the road. My hands gripped the steering wheel tight enough to leave imprints. That's when I heard it, a tapping. Soft, deliberate, coming from the back of the truck. I froze. My heart hammered in my chest. I told myself it was nothing, just the boxes shifting. But it wasn't random. The sound was rhythmic, purposeful, like someone was testing my attention, reminding me I wasn't alone. I pulled over briefly just to stretch, to try and calm myself. Headlights flitted across the road behind me. I swear I could see a silhouette crouched low, almost running parallel to my vehicle before disappearing again. I didn't stop. I couldn't. My brain screamed, keep moving. Every instinct, every lesson learned from the nights before, screamed at me not to linger. It got worse. The van. The same dirty, boxy white van from I-80. Out of nowhere, headlights appeared in the distance behind me, small but unmistakable. The heart-stopping realization hit. It had found me again. My pulse raced, sweat forming on the back of my neck despite the cold. I floored it. I couldn't see the road clearly anymore, the horizon blurred. The van stayed right on my tail, relentless, matching every speed increase, every swerve. I tried braking once. A fatal mistake. It matched my deceleration instantly, the engine growl echoing through the night. My mind raced with possibilities, but the only clear path was survival, escape. Hours passed in a nightmare blur. I remember the GPS spinning in circles, my headlights slicing through fog patches. I dared not glance back, not really. When I did, the van seemed impossibly close, its silhouette filling my rearview mirror, black windows, no face visible, but the intent unmistakable. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. I spotted a truck stop up ahead. My hands shook so violently, I had trouble turning the wheel. I pulled into a space under the brightest light I could find, blocking my truck into the corner. Semi-trucks lined the lot, drivers visible through their windows. I got out cautiously, keeping an eye on the van. My breath puffed in the cold night air, every step feeling like walking on a precipice. The van crept in behind me, slowing, idling. I could hear nothing beyond the wind and my own breathing. I ducked into the diner, sliding to a seat near the counter. A woman behind it glanced up. I barely registered her face. My eyes were glued to the window. Two figures emerged from the van, hoodies pulled low, silent. No motion except standing, staring straight ahead. My pulse nearly stopped. I realized in that moment they didn't need to chase me. They were patient. They could wait hours, days, if necessary. The trucker outside confronted them. I watched frozen as the van slowly reversed, swung out, and disappeared into the dark. Relief hit, sharp and immediate but fleeting. I knew they weren't gone. They had patience I couldn't understand, a method I couldn't predict. The van, the figures, the woman, the man with the pipe, all threads of a pattern I was only beginning to see. Weeks later, I was alone in my apartment, curtains drawn, phone in hand, still double-checking locks. I started noticing things, small things, shadows in corners, movements at the edge of my vision. Sometimes it was nothing, sometimes I was convinced it was them. I began sleeping with the lights on, every window locked, my Glock within reach. I checked deliveries and shipments obsessively, every route memorized for alternative escape paths. Then one night, it escalated in a way that shook me to my core. I was coding again, late hours, headphones in, the only light from the laptop. Hunger drove me to the quick check. Empty roads, familiar, comfortable, or so I thought. As I walked inside, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. The brown coat, twisted posture, dead stare. I froze, chest tightening. This time I didn't try to look away. I stared back, frozen by a combination of fear and compulsion. He didn't move, just watched, silent, and in that moment I realized something. The fear wasn't just for survival. It was deliberate. The fear was the point. The eyes, wide and unblinking, were a weapon. My stomach churned. I grabbed my sandwich, hands shaking, and left, adrenaline surging through every fiber of my being. Outside, the headlights appeared. Not one, not two, but several, weaving along the road behind me. They didn't pursue aggressively yet, but they were there, tracing my path like hunters testing their prey. I floored it. Every mile became a pulse of terror. I took the first overpass, swerving, hopping to lose them. One stayed. One always stayed. I reached a small town, barely awake from adrenaline and exhaustion. I parked near a gas station, doors locked, heart pounding. Every time a car passed, my muscles tensed. I dared not enter the station, dared not speak to anyone, dared not breathe too loudly. I realized in that moment, this wasn't random terror. This wasn't luck. This was strategy, methodical, like I was part of a game I hadn't signed up for. The weeks following were worse. Phone calls in the middle of the night with no one on the other end. Shadows in the trees along the highways I drove. Objects out of place in my apartment, nothing taken, nothing destroyed, but rearranged, subtle enough to make me doubt my own mind. Sleep became impossible. Every sound, every whisper, every creak was amplified to monstrous proportions. I tried to tell someone once. A friend, a colleague. I started describing it, the patterns, the figures, the fear that wasn't just fear, it was communication. But as soon as I mentioned it, their faces went blank. Not disbelief, not confusion, blank. They nodded, smiled, and walked away. That's when I realized something horrifying. Maybe the world sees the world differently than I do. Maybe some things are real and some things exist only to test us, or worse, to trap us. I began avoiding highways entirely, sticking to crowded areas, staying in light. Delivery routes became nightmares. Every intersection, every stretch of empty road was a potential ambush, a potential witnessless moment of confrontation. The fear was no longer just adrenaline, it was a constant, gnawing presence. And then it happened again. On a rural road outside a small town, I caught sight of the van once more. Empty lot, dark, silent. My hands gripped the wheel so hard I thought they might break. No lights, no movement, just the van waiting. I didn't stop, I didn't look back. I drove past, but the image seared itself into my brain. That patience, that awareness, that ability to be unseen yet present, it was beyond anything I had encountered. Some nights I lie in bed, awake, thinking about it, about him, about them. About the woman, the man with the pipe, the van, the figures in hoodies. I see them in the corner of my vision. I feel them behind me. I hear their whispers when there's nothing else. And the worst part, I know they are patient, they can wait, they can watch. They can choose when and where to act, and if they want, there's nothing I can do to stop it. I write this as a warning, a confession, a record. To anyone reading, be aware of your surroundings, trust instincts. Lights, locks, loud noises, they help, but they aren't enough. Because the things that haunt you aren't always visible. Sometimes they are shadows. Sometimes they are patience. Sometimes they are waiting for you to blink. I don't know if I'll ever be free of it, I doubt it. I drive, I live, I work. But always with a pulse in my chest, a chill in my bones, a gaze I can't see, following me wherever I go. The highway is endless, the night is long, and I have learned this, fear is patient, but so are they.